All right. Happy Friday, everybody.
Happy
And
Friday.
and welcome to the Back Catalog Listening Party. My name is Mother Banjo, one of your hosts.
My name is Anthony Ihrig, the other host.
And today we have two guests joining us. We have Erik Brandt joining us from St. Paul to talk about his yes, yes, talk about his 2012 release, The Longest Winter, and also joining us, the producer of the album, joining us from, I think, Los Angeles, Alex Owana.
Has it been 10 years already?
10-year anniversary. That's amazing.
That's right. And we are so excited to celebrate with the two of you today and with all of you out there listening. Looks like Connie has joined the party from Richfield.
Hey, Connie.
And Chris, one of our regulars from gloomy Savage, Minnesota. Yeah, it's a little gray and rainy here in the Twin Cities, and but things are going to look a little more up. Things are looking up for me, I have to say. We've been in experiencing COVID in our household, and I'm
Finally
reemerging.
gotcha.
I'm reemerging, and I have this mug, Erik, that you will appreciate.
Yes, well done.
Nice.
Erik has been one of the brains or the brain behind House of Mercy recordings, and so I thought I'd bring out his mug. And I'm drinking some special coffee today as I reemerge, some with some Irish cream. So this is my first foray back into enjoying the finer things in life. So cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Cheers.
What are you drinking, Tony? You have a mug too.
Well, as I have a show I have to run off to right after the broadcast, so no Irish coffee for me today. Just some delicious Ruby Roasters coffee, a nice roasting outfit out of Wisconsin. I believe this is one of their Colombian blends, and it's quite tasty.
I'm
Very
drinking
nice.
a fine blend of Los Angeles water with Los Angeles pollution, I'm sure.
It's got the designer chemicals in it.
Excellent. And Erik, are you enjoying anything?
Well, it was kind of the frantic dash home from work, and it was pretty. It was a pretty. I'm a high school teacher. I teach in St. Paul public schools, and it was a pretty difficult week for a variety of reasons. So I just went straight to whiskey.
Yeah. Yeah. What? Just
I mean,
cut to
You
the
know-
chase, man.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And you're not alone. Let's see. Joe from South Minneapolis having his John Prine beverage, and Alan having a mojito down in Texas.
Excellent. Excellent.
Sounds like a good idea to me. And Alex from Bryn Mawr, gin and tonic. Yeah, folks, I think have had a week.
Lynn's got her wine, and in South Carolina. Well, welcome everyone. If you're new to the show, this is what we do every Friday. We get together with our favorite musicians, and we listen to stuff. We listen to albums in their back catalog. We toast to the weekend, and what makes it the most fun for us is interacting with you. So, as you're already doing, you're in the comments. Feel free to chime in if you have questions for Erik, if you have questions for Alex. If you were part of the record, we know that there's some folks out there that might have been involved in this record that might be joining us. So chime in, talk amongst each other, and most of all, have a great hour.
The biggest
Yes.
surprise to me so far, you guys, is that I thought Erik was returning from the stage and playing a gig someplace. Like, it wasn't a long week of touring, or like you just dragged yourself out of the studio.
Not yet. I mean, the next time I'm in the studio, it's going to be with you, Alex. So you
That's
would
right.
know about that.
But you are a serial album maker. I mean, and music maker. You are constantly making music.
True.
So do you have an opportunity to do that at your day job at school at all?
No, not so much. But I will say plenty of inspiration
Oh.
for songwriting for me comes from my work as a high school teacher. And I have to give a special shout out to Peter Vu, who is here as one of my former students. Peter, thank you for being here.
Oh,
well.
All
awesome.
right, he's a big Hillbilly Quartet fan.
Yep.
There. That's great.
Yep.
Yeah, for folks who know a lot about the Twin Cities music scene, you might know Erik Brandt from his work with the Urban Hillbilly Quartet. That's certainly, I think, how I first got to know your music, Erik. And I think I heard you not long after I moved to Minnesota. So, I mean, I've been a fan for a long time, and I'm excited to dig into this record today because it might be different from folks who maybe are more familiar with your Hillbilly Quartet stuff. So I'm excited to dig in, but maybe for folks who aren't as familiar with your music, you can give the brief bio of like where you grew up, how you got into playing music, and maybe also what instruments you play.
How much time do you have?
I know. 30 seconds. No, just kidding.
I grew up mostly just as a piano player. And around the time I was 18, and I was really into jazz. And around the time I was 18, 19, I realized I would never become the Thelonious Monk, the next Thelonious Monk. Um,
I thought it was Liberace you aspired to.
nope, nope, definitely not.
Got that
And
wrong.
so at that
I
point,
always tried to make you sound like Liberace in the records. I got to rethink this whole
yeah,
thing.
we need to go back and redo the mixes, Alex. Way too much reverb. But around the time I was 18, 19, I just started realizing, you know what? Why limit myself to one instrument? So I started playing as many instruments as possible, and just with a goal of kind of unlocking new ideas. So I mostly play guitar, piano, accordion, but along the way, I've played bagpipes, tin whistle, mandolin. I played drums really badly.
How about
Played some
zither?
harmonica. Never did the zither. I play some hurdy-gurdy very badly.
Hey, all right.
Yep, and just a kind of variety of other things. Um, I moved to I grew up in rural southern Wisconsin, and spent a lot of my time in the country, and summers often in kind of rural northern Wisconsin, um, doing a lot of canoeing, canoe tripping, backpacking, and so country music, kind of folk music, being out of the city is very much. Even though I've been a city person for a very long time. I still feel a little bit like a bit of an outsider. Like I'm still kind of a country boy, and it comes out a lot of times in my music.
Where did Thelonious Monk grow up? Maybe this is the issue.
Well, I don't actually know where Monk was from. I feel like Pennsylvania, like Philadelphia area, but he definitely got well known in New York.
Strikes me as more of a city guy.
Oh, way more. Yeah.
So you can't take the country out of the boy. Is this what basically you're saying?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. And I will say maybe like a really powerful musical memory for me. I grew up somewhat near the city of Janesville, and just don't go there. Just drive through. Just keep driving. But Janesville at the time, and so I think still does, has an amazing public library. And I was in the library one time. This is the 80s, and there was a record. There was this green record. It was on display, and you might know this record. It has a kind of a green square, and the image on the inside is these kind of raggedy-looking guys sitting in front of a castle. And the band's name was the Waterboys.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know anything about them, but something drew me to that album, and I picked it up, checked it out, took it home, put it on my dad's record player, and it just like blew my mind. Like I had a feeling that there was a way to like bring together rock and folk and country and traditional music and maybe a little bit of jazz and stuff I didn't even know. I didn't have the words for it at that time, or reference points. That album brought it all together, and like I think once I heard that album, that gave me an idea of like, there's a place for me, or a place for like the kind of music I like to make, which is kind of all over the map, and gave me kind of a green light to go for it. So
Nice.
moving up to college in Twin Cities, played in a bunch of bands, toured around for a long time, and got to know fantastic people like Alex Awana, who is an amazing record producer, engineer. You should go to Alex, just multitask right now, folks. Make a new tab, go to
Or save it for
alexawana.com
later.
and look at all the amazing stuff Alex has done. And like, learning about, Alex taught me and the other musicians in the band so much about
Reverb.
Well, yeah, there was that. There was the reverb era and a lot of compression for a while. But just like the experience, like making the experience of a song powerful and like thinking about every layer of it. So, Alex, so glad you're here.
Like a movie for the ears.
And tell us about this album in particular in terms of like, had you guys worked together before that you made this record together, or or how did you come together to make this project?
We had to make several really bad records to learn how to make a good one.
I wouldn't call them bad. I mean,
I'm joking.
I know. I mean, like they got us on record labels, So I mean, they got radio play. So I mean, they had some. I think if there's one thing like I really want to communicate is like for me as an artist, like I want to try to make stuff of lasting value. Like I want to make music that people, even if it's 10 years later, 20 years later, 30 years later, be like, okay, that has lasting value. Like I want to hear that again, even though it's dated. And I think Alex had a lot to do with me kind of being able to actualize that feeling.
It's cool too, because going back to listening to all those records that we did make, I don't know how many it was, but it was over a pretty broad span of time. There are timeless moments on those records that I still love, and it's interesting because like getting 10 or 12 songs on an album for each one of them to be amazing is pretty challenging. But I think it's a pretty big success when there's a couple or even one. And I know there's more than that on the records that we made that just like that do stand the test of time and take you, like there's something that you hit and that clicks. And I should add that our record making process was pretty scrappy. Like we didn't have, $100,000 budgets and weeks in the studio. It was like, we've got this weekend, we're going to go and lay it down. A lot of it was live. So it was coming from, Eric, would you say a combination of what you guys would do live plus like a little bit of studio expansion of that?
Exactly. Nailed it.
Well, let's give before we talk too much about the production, we want to make sure folks get to hear the music because I know people are itching to hear it, as am I. So the first track from this album that we are exploring, if you tuned in late, we're talking with Erik Brandt and Alex Awana, who teamed up to make this project, The Long Winter, which you're talking about standing the test of time, Eric. This came out 10 years ago, so this is the 10th anniversary of this album, and we're excited to revisit it today. And this first track you picked to listen to is Anywhere But Here. Is there anything you want to say about this song before we take a listen?
3 things real quick. 1, crank it up. 2, I mentioned I'm a teacher. The part of the lyrics of the song came directly from parent-teacher conferences and what a parent said to me. So anybody who's a parent listening today, be careful what you say to teachers because you never know. It could end up in song lyrics. And 3, Alex just worked just wonders with the sound of this. Like it sounds so live and beautiful and rich. So enjoy cranking it up and just listening.
All right, you heard it, folks. Crank it up. This is Erik Brandt, Anywhere But Here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
If I don't have direction, what you don't know, I've done some reflection. I've been hanging around, waiting for a sign. And when it shows up, I'm leaving all this behind. If I had a choice, I'd be anywhere but here. But it's not my choice, so I'll give it another year. I don't want to leave you, but we can agree. And this hometown life is killing me. Hometown life is killing me. Oh, I've been hedging my bets. Oh, I've been paying my dues. I've been struggling with these wandering blues. You see my feet, they got a mind of their own. And all they care about is getting gone. If I had a choice, I'd be anywhere but here. But it's not my choice, so I'll give it another year. I don't want to leave you, but we can agree. And this hometown life is killing me. Hometown life is killing me. When the sun breaks, I'll be on the road again. You might see me, you might not, but I'll be there till my engine's shot. but we can agree. And this hometown life is killing me. Hometown life is killing me. Hometown life is killing me.
Oh, yeah. Erik Brandt here on the Back Catalog Listening Party from his album that came out 10 years ago, The Longest Winter. We are revisiting it today on the Back Catalog Listening Party with Erik himself and producer Alex Awana joining us from California. And that song just has so many wonderful layers to it. And Joe was commenting on how great it sounds in the headphones.
It really
with the
does.
left-right channels. And I totally agree with that. It sounds real sweet. And one thing that's interesting to me is, I feel like this song could have been performed in so many different ways. It could have just been more of a kind of blues number or a little more folky or personnel. But I love how it just starts with this kind of rock vibe. And then when the accordion comes in, it just feels like kind of slinky and bluesy and swampy and not not folky at all. And I kind of love that about it. Like when it comes in, it brings more attitude, not less. And I think sometimes people don't think of the accordion being that way.
Well, two things. Two things. Three. Erik is a master of slow rock. Erik is a genre bender, as you pointed out earlier, Erik, with your origin story. And three, no one makes the accordion rock like Erik Brandt.
So one thing I have to say about the accordion part on that song is actually I could not rock it enough. I tried. I couldn't make it happen. So actually I had to hire my good friend and my accordion teacher, Dan Newton, to play the accordion.
Oh,
part.
yeah.
So
Past
Alex,
guest here on the show. He's top notch.
He's amazing and an all-around beautiful human being. So Alex, I'm sorry.
I didn't say you rocked that particular accordion performance. I just said that you're really.
I'd like to, if it's all right, Peter and Joe made these comments about like the sound of the album, and maybe one thing I want to say that answers an earlier question is one thing that Alex and I tried to do with this album is because our previous recordings, of which there I think were 4 or 5 recording sessions together, we wanted to be able to take our time more. So here we're actually down in my basement, but we turned my home into the recording studio just right upstairs. And so I was blessed with like a week or so where my wife took the dog and the kids. Yep, right there. That's perfect.
You sent these pictures, and I'm like listening to this, and I can't believe this was recorded in a house.
It's recorded. Yeah. Also,
this is nuts.
Also inspired by the
So good.
Waterboys Fisherman Blues album, which was recorded in that castle, in that home. And so I'm going to turn it over to Alex. Alex found a way to round up. The studio must have been hundreds of thousands of dollars of gear that we got to borrow basically for free. Alex.
So what you're seeing basically here, this is Erik's living room and dining room. But what year was your house built? Like
1902.
1902. So we have like higher ceilings, wood floors, plaster walls. And when we stripped everything out, the sound that you're hearing, there's a couple key components to it. One is that it's just in a room and everyone playing together. The song that you just heard, most of the elements were done live, performed live, and recorded in one pass with just the musicians in the room. So we have 2 guitars, the bass, the drums, and then Erik, were you playing?
I was kind of singing like a scratch vocal, but my vocals were done later.
And so the only things that were not captured all at once in that room was Erik's vocal, as he just said, and then that accordion solo, and then the harmony vocal from Angie.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like got that live feel. And so the way that, but there's lots of recordings that are actually captured live, but don't necessarily have that spaciousness. And we saw from a couple comments, like Joe commented that like it has this kind of width and this space around it. And it's because there's just a few microphones and they're not all kind of jammed up in front of the instruments. And what happens is the sound bounces around that room and off the floors and off the walls. And so the sound of the electric guitars is going into the drums a little bit. The sound of the drums is going into the electric guitar mics. And then we had these room microphones up kind of capturing the whole thing. So it was a really minimalist approach. But the thing is, if you're recording good instruments played well with a good song in a good sounding space, it just is magical, and it kind of takes care of itself.
You're kind of playing the room as well.
It's so true. Oh, and that's 100%. So like Noah on the drums, he did such a great job. One thing that is a real challenge with both recordings and like a live performance, oftentimes when there's a band involved, is if the band doesn't play the room, as Erik just described. And so like you can have a drummer just like, I'm pounding my drums, right? And it's just everywhere. But Noah was really, and I'm pretty aware also of the consequence of not playing sensitively to the room. So I worked really closely with Noah to tune the drums in a certain way and to really put an emphasis on creating a warm sound in the room. And so it was as much as, it's funny you mentioned jazz, like your influence of jazz, Erik, because the way the jazz recordings used to be done, and like one of my favorite recordings of all time, Dave Brubeck, Time Out. And there were like 3 or 4 microphones in a room, and those guys were just standing next to each other, around each other. That's exactly how we did it. A few mics, and everybody's listening, and everybody's playing together. There were no headphones, which is usually how you make a record. So I've been talking a lot, but I do want to talk a little bit about the gear you mentioned at some point. But I want to like leave a breath here if we wanted to.
Well, that's really fascinating to me. I was going to ask all about that. I think you answered all my questions. And something that we've seen time and time again on this show is that when musicians play together in a room, it just feels different. So that, that groove that you can almost only get, the ebb and flow of everything that when you get everybody together. So I appreciate your insights.
Yeah, and also I would a couple names are thrown out there, and I want to make sure we get the personnel, give them their props. So who played on this record, and were these people that were playing in your band at the time, Erik, or were these people you just brought in to make the record?
No, most of the people, just about everybody in the album, have long-term relationships with. So the fellow sitting in the chair right there with the blue hat, that's Noah Reamer, and Noah is a musician with a band called Tickle Penny Corner for a long time. He's a children's musician known as Duke Otherwise. He is an incredibly gifted musician. The fellow sitting at the bench is Phil Hicks, and Phil is a local bassist, plays with a whole bunch of different groups. And Phil and I had played in a previous band together.
I was going to ask about the bass work because, man, that was amazing on that.
Oh, he's absolutely amazing. This fellow here is Jeremy Shapinski, and Jeremy and I go back good 25 years, maybe a bit more. And he and I are the ones who very much kind of drive the Urban Hillbilly Quartet, and it's very rare for me to make musical decisions without consulting Jeremy. It's kind of weird for me to be here talking about music without Jeremy here. He couldn't be here. He's a beautiful guy, and he's also a fantastic visual artist. And possibly a link to his art could be dropped into the chat. And while that's happening, Joe.
Yeah, Alex is pointing out, by the way, a painting of Jeremy's behind him. So
yes, and Joe has a comment about a lyric from a Vigilantes a Love Song. And yes, Joe, I do get the reference. And Jeremy was the one who introduced me to the Vigilantes of Love. Jeremy did the artwork for this album as well. A couple other folks, a guy named Dave Strahan. We saw him momentarily there in a green shirt. He's a great local player. He plays in groups like Farewell Milwaukee and Romantica. He's a banjo and guitarist, and those folks kind of made up the core group. But additionally, there were people like Angie Talley of the group Angie and the Ranch Hands sang harmonies.
And Mike sang some harmonies, and
Mike Schultz did. Chris Larson.
Oh yeah.
Yep, Katie Jo Pidell did a little bit of fiddling.
Ben Kyle, clarinet.
This guy named Sean Egan, who just lives down the block. He's like 3 houses down.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I talked over you when you were saying Ben Kyle. He sang those amazing harmony vocals on, like the stack of harmony vocals on
the song that's coming next.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Good segue.
Yeah. Well, let's get to that song because we only have. I mean, I want to make sure we get to enough songs so folks can get a sense of how great this record sounds. So,
can I just say a few things super fast?
Yeah.
Okay, I lived in Hungary for a time. So those of you just joined late, I'm a high school teacher. I did a teacher exchange, and Hungarians have a really interesting dark sense of humor. So, for example, they might say instead of "there's a light at the end of the tunnel," there's a tunnel at the end of the light. And so this song I wrote in a very acoustic form while living in Budapest, and that lyric is in there. There's lots of graffiti, and the song has kind of like a really dark kind of rock intensity. And one of the beautiful things about it that Alex was just referencing is Ben Kyle comes in with these gorgeous harmony vocals. So enjoy.
All right.
It's good. This is a rocker as well.
All right. I think you're going to want to turn this one up as well. This is
Crank it
Erik
up.
Brandt, Hard Life, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
There's a tunnel at the end of the light. It might be day, it might be night. Life is hard. Hard as life. It's a steady procession of gray. Graffiti on the walls won't fade. Life is hard. Hard as life. Lord, take me to the place where I can dream again, where the sun wakes up to a brand new day. Is this the future I was hoping for? So tell me if there's another way, when honest work doesn't pay. I used to think I was the chosen one, the seventh son of a seventh son. Life is hard, hard as life. And I find that I'm replaceable, absolutely interchangeable. Life is hard, hard as life. Lord, take me to the place where I can dream again, where the sun wakes up to a brand new day. Is this the future I was hoping for? So tell me if there's another way, when honest work doesn't pay. Lord, take me to the place where I can dream again, where the sun wakes up to a brand new day. Is this the future I was hoping for? So tell me if there's another way, when honest work doesn't pay. 27 years I showed up to work. I didn't complain, I wore the company shirt. Life is hard, hard as life.
Yeah. Erik Brandt with Hard
Rockin'.
Live. Oh my gosh. And I love the opening of that. Just the drums and the guitars. It almost had like a Fairport Convention-y vibe, speaking of like mixing the traditional and rock elements. But I love that. And I love it when it opens up with those pretty harmonies. I feel like this is coming out of the longest winter for all of us right now.
Yeah, yeah. Good art tends to speak to people You mentioned timeless, Eric. That's what happens when you write something that stands the test of time. This was the longest winter. I mean, it started December 2019, and we're hopefully just coming out of it now.
I think I released the album like 8 years too early or 10 years too early. That's the problem.
Well,
I mean, Alex had very much to do with like how that song opens up. Like, I wrote it very much as a folk song, and Alex had the ability, which is so wonderful, like a wonderful gift he has, and also with working with the producer, like, here's other things, right? And so like, hey, how about you try this? How about the drums? If you notice, there was like no cymbals on that drum part, the whole song. That was Alex's decision, and it makes the song amazing.
What I hear is the scene changes. So you have like the darkness and the the uncertainty and the despair, if you will. And then when Ben comes in, it gets so simple and so open, as you guys described. That's just an acoustic guitar being strummed once per bar, and then Ben's harmony is just like rising up, and then like it's like it's like you just stepped outside into the sunshine and you're in a different scene in the movie.
Yeah.
In Hungarian, there's an expression called nehez az élet, which is life is hard. But in Hungarian, you can turn things around. You can do éhed az nehez. So hard is life is hard. So we can't really do much of that in English. But if you're wondering, like, why are you doing this weird stuff with English?
You sound like Yoda if you do that.
That's what I'm doing.
Hard is life.
So anyway, I was just the song is written in Hungary, and I was just trying to capture that. I'm an English teacher. I'm super interested in words. So what you can do.
So that's a word nerd note. Here's a sound nerd note. It's kind of spaciousness you hear on that, and there's like almost an echo. It's that is Eric's house. That is Eric's living room. And what I did is I just delayed it in time. So you'll hear like a drum hit or the guitar strum, Jeremy's electric guitar. And then all I did was take the sound that it made in the room and I shifted it back in time, like, I don't know, 50 milliseconds or something like that. So we get this kind of sound, and it really opens up the spaciousness of the whole song. But it's all natural.
I was going to ask, so were those room mics you're talking about? You just were capturing the reverberation and then kind of using that is it credited on the album, like as an instrument? Maybe it should be.
The house.
It really, yeah. Eric, have you thought about opening your house up to other recording projects?
I would love to make another album in my house. I would definitely love to.
Well, you guys are going to be empty nesters in some short number
of
years, right?
The kids are working their way along. Yeah, so
you could open a recording studio, just a matter of time.
I'm not sure my wife's into that.
Well,
she's like trying to make dinner, and folks are just like coming in with their guitars.
Yeah.
I wanted to real quickly before I lose the thread here. I wanted to talk about this album art because it looks suspiciously similar to a piece behind Alex back there, and I just wanted to ask you about this. And if you could talk again about, was it Jeremy who's the artist?
Yeah, Jeremy Shapinski is an amazing local artist, and these are actually different pieces, but you can see, this is definitely of kind of Jeremy's. I lost the word. Motifs yes. He does lots of stuff. I mean, Jeremy actually started as a portrait artist, and so doing mostly paintings of people, and then since then he's really branched out really into color and movement and abstraction. So yeah, he's a great guy, a phenomenal artist.
Awesome.
Wonderful. And we should mention that, Eric, do you still have physical copies of this album?
So glad you asked. In fact, there's a box or two of them right there on the shelf that none of you can see.
If he's going to turn his house into a recording studio, he's going to need to unload some boxes. I'm just saying. And it means that you also get to have this physical version of this beautiful artwork that we were just talking about. So if you want to hear it in its full high fidelity, for those of you who still have
folks,
CDs.
I can't imagine what I mean. The internet pipes tend to kind of compress things a little bit and stuff, and it's such a well produced album. I mean, it's really mind blowing that this was done at your house. It sounds so good. So I'll second what Ellen just said. Go to ericbrandt.com and get yourself the high resolution version.
Yes.
And if you want to stream it in high res, Eric, do you sell on Bandcamp?
No, don't sell on Bandcamp, but through CD Baby.
Okay, cool. Well, if you have a streaming service, the one to do it on is Tidal for a couple different
Yeah.
reasons, because you can, on their higher tiers, you can get high resolution or full resolution audio. And the second thing is, if Eric is one of the top artists you stream in a month, a higher percentage of your monthly subscription will go to Eric. He'll get like $10
Wow.
per person.
Whoa.
So that's, yeah.
Instead of like 0.0004
Exactly.
cents
Yeah.
per-
Yeah.
That's like
10,000
10
plays.
years in Spotify plays right there.
Yeah, I mean, so everybody who's like listening to you listen to artists on Spotify, but please know that they get paid so
Right.
little,
Which is
Yeah.
a good time to say that even if you don't need a physical copy of the album or of the artwork, then you can also just throw something in Eric's tip jar is a great way of doing that. So you can stream it wherever you want, but make sure to throw some money Eric's way so that we can get the next Eric Alex collaboration.
Yeah,
in the works.
recording studios are not cheap, folks. This is probably a 10-year plan that we're starting here today
Yes.
to get his house set up for this.
Exactly.
Would it be possible to put up the photo of Alex sitting at that desk with all the machinery real quick?
You bet. 1 second here.
And if so this album was really made with the generosity of so many people,
Yeah.
probably more than we can name right now.
Totally.
but
Okay,
lent us-
can I go top of mind? Okay, great. So locally, I called in. There's a local professional audio equipment superstar that nobody knows about. Probably his name is Dan Kennedy, and he has a company called
He makes those
Great
preamps.
River Electronics. He makes preamps. He makes a thing now that people don't mix on big consoles anymore as much. They mix in the computer. He makes an outboard analog version of that's all in one rack. That was a big sound of this record, was getting that analog gush in there. And then a lot of that equipment that you're seeing in there, at the time I was working for a really amazing is not quite the right word, a very thoughtful and helpful and high-end, I'll just say, pro audio retailer called Vintage King Audio. They're out of Detroit and Los Angeles and Nashville. And they let me borrow probably like $100,000 worth of gear so that I could really internalize the sound of it and get to know how it sounds as a salesperson. That was like the rationale behind it. But they literally shipped like $100,000 worth of gear to Eric's house so we could produce this record, including microphones from Rupert Nivelle.
microphones that were worth several house payments. Let's just say
totally.
that.
Yeah. And some of the microphones were like vintage technology, tube microphones, ribbon microphones. The drum sound really is due to ribbon microphones, which is like one of the oldest microphone technologies. And a couple of companies like Rupert Neve Designs, SE Electronics, they've taken this ribbon technology, which is like, the big, Bing Crosby mic, or the one that you see on Johnny Carson's desk, and kind of modernized it and updated it. And it does something kind of similar to what the human ear does regarding sound. So it's got this kind of pleasing, broad sound to it.
We like it on banjos, us banjo players, because it tends to soften up those high frequencies, but they don't disappear. They just, they're just not as prickly as those condenser microphones.
And we got a question from Joe. Eric, have you ever worked on a Shakespearean theme or phrase into any of your many tracks? Being the literary person you are.
Yeah, that's a great question. Not a Shakespearean one, but I definitely have worked literary stuff into songs before. Lines by poets like William Stafford. William Stafford appears in a couple songs of mine for sure. No Shakespeare yet. Sorry, working on it.
And if you have any questions for Eric or Alex about either the cool way they recorded this record, about nerdy gear questions or songwriting questions, throw them in the comments, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. But we want to get to as much music as we can too. So let's. This next track you picked, Eric, is "Wherever You Go." Is there anything you want to say about this track before you take a listen?
Reference points. Pure Prairie League, America.
Mm.
There's 2 acoustic guitars. I'm playing in standard tuning. Jeremy's playing in a totally different tuning. The inspiration and Alex helped come up with this beautiful kind of descending vocal line that comes in at the end, which I would have never come up with on my own.
I don't
The
remember
song,
that.
well, you'll hear it. You'll know it. You'll know it right away. The song. So my wife and we have 3 kids. We have 3 beautiful children. And when our youngest was born, our middle took him to go meet his new baby brother at the hospital, and it was a beautiful moment. Then driving home, our middle child was just devastated, and he's just a little boy. He was like 2 years old, 3 years old. He didn't have the words to explain what was going on, but clearly it was some kind of like, I'm no longer the baby, or I'm going home with dad, but mom and baby are at the hospital. It's just like that. I so palpably felt his heartbreak, and just trying to reassure him that, like, we love you no matter what. We're with you wherever you go. That's the heart of this song.
All right, well, let's give it a spin. This is Erik Brandt, Wherever You Go, here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
Let's talk about the cloud that's hanging. Talk about the rain hanging over your head. Talk about the sound I'm hearing. The sound of your heart breaking. Don't forget, we'll be with you wherever you go. I felt your tears falling, soaking into my shoulder. You were scared of the change. Will things ever be the same again? Don't forget, we'll be with you wherever you go. Oh, my beautiful boy, these thunderstorms will pass. When dreams pull you into sleep, we'll kiss your head, this vow we'll keep. Don't forget, we'll be with you wherever you go. Don't forget, we'll be with you wherever you go.
Erik Brandt with Wherever You Go. Beautiful song from Erik Brandt's 2012 release, The Longest Winter, which I feel like could be called the warmest blanket, because I feel like that's how these songs are feeling to me today. I mean, not that they're, a hard life had its edge, but it also provided that comfort, and
That adjective has come up more than once in the comments today, too.
yeah. So thank you. That was beautiful.
It's hard for me not to get a little teary hearing that one.
Does your middle child know that this song was written for them?
Yeah. When when the album was coming out, and he was just a little bit older, I remember sitting with his name's Henry. I remember sitting with Henry and playing it for him, and it was a really sweet moment. Yeah.
Nice. And we got a question from Peter for Alex. I think the one right above that. Let's see. Question for Alex. Working with Erik for a few projects now. Have you found Erik's preferred mic chain?
Oh, interesting. Okay, so what Peter's asking about is the word mic chain or vocal chain, is kind of you think of it as like all the equipment between the performer or the sound and then what gets recorded. So sometimes you can have the microphone, there's a microphone preamplifier or amplifier, there's a compressor, there can be other gear. So we made an interesting choice on this record, and I was talking about ribbon microphones earlier, and we were talking about the sound that they tend to have. We actually committed to using only ribbon microphones on Erik's voice, which we hadn't done in the past. And it was a little bit of a risk because, the voice is the most important part of the record usually. And it's also one that has to make a connection and has to have that intimacy. And I wasn't sure. And so the reason that the typical kind of microphone is called a condenser mic, we're talking about very like high resolution, and they kind of pick up all these little nuances. But we used an old technology ribbon that was known to actually have a really kind of bright and open sound. And it ended up working on Erik's voice. And that ribbon traditionally is called an RCA 10001. But a company based in Pasadena, California, actually called AEA Audio, re-released the microphone probably 80 years after it had last been made, and it's called a KU4, I believe. So if you look up a AEA KU4, I might be getting that model number wrong, but it looks like a giant bird cage. The thing is weighs 4 pounds. And then we used a mixture of different kind of vintage style preamps and stuff. Erik, was it these thunderstorms will pass?
Yeah, that was totally you.
Yeah.
That was like total like Lutheran choir moment.
Can't help it.
Yeah, no, that was beautiful. And the sound on this record, we've said it a few times, but as you can see, as we are sort of geeking out about the gear and the sounds captured in Erik's house where they recorded this, really come out sounding so good. So again, if you're listening, through your phone or, on your computer as you're like making dinner or whatever, you're not hearing the full quality. You're hearing the music, but you're not hearing the quality of the sounds themselves. So you definitely want to check it out in those high-res files, either on Tidal or by buying the record from Erik directly and clearing out his house. It's spring cleaning time, folks. So
That's right.
Yes.
Check it out. And I bet he would sign it for you, I'm guessing.
Totally. And we could even negotiate 2-for-1 deals, 3-for-1 deals.
10 for a box for one. No.
we could work on the box set because I've released I've released 12 different albums.
That's right.
Combination of solo and urban hillbilly quartet, and yeah.
So.
CDs sound warmer than streaming.
That's true. They do. And for this long winter we've had, you might need that. So, but we do want to get to one more song before we have to take off today. So, this last one that you picked, Erik, to listen to is I Drove Past Your House Today. And whose house are we talking about?
Yeah. So, to circle back to some of the comments about how, it seems kind of ironic that this album has such kind of maybe a downer title where the song sounds so warm that, there actually is a fair amount of death in this album, and people who, like my grandmother died, and that there's a song in the album referencing her. There's different kind of just grieving changes, and so I like that kind of productive tension, where something sounds happy but maybe is kind of dark, or sounds warm but is actually kind of sad. I think that does something to us as humans that's really powerful and mysterious. This song is about a colleague, a really good friend I worked with at Harding High School for a long time, a guy named Ray Camp, and perhaps Peter, he was your teacher at one point, I don't remember. And he died. He died during the school year, and every day on my way out of Harding to drive to pick up my kids from the school they were at, because I would pick them up after school, I would pass his house, and I would be thinking, because I would drive past it when his name was Ray, a guy named Ray Camp. Ray lived there, and then after he had died and the house was empty, and then and had sat empty for a while, and noticing they shoveled the sidewalk but they didn't shovel the stairs. Interesting. Why? What does that mean? And then the last verse of the song takes us hopefully to a future time where people were living in the house again, and also thinking, what makes a house a home? What makes a home a house? And I'm not necessarily answering those questions. I'm more of an observer. I do want to point out, as you listen to it, you might think there's drums, but there's no drums. And this is actually Alex's idea. And so what you're hearing is people, like three of us, hitting our thighs and hitting our chests, and Alex miking it in a super interesting, powerful way that sounds like this drum. Is it a drum? Is it not a drum?
Very cool. All right. Well, make sure you're listening for all of these things, including these lyrics. I agree with Lynn here. Grief songs are so powerful. Thank you for this song, and thank you all for being here. We're going to close out our hour here with Erik Brandt's "I Drove Past Your House Today" here on the Back Catalog Listening Party.
1, 2, 3. Drove past your house today. I had to take a look. Felt I probably should. Who has raked these leaves? Mowed the lawn since you've been gone. I drove past your house last month. Snow up against the walls. The icicles about to fall. Someone had shoveled the walk, but not the stairs, 'cause you weren't there. School bus rumbles up the street. Your house blurs into the scenery. This place that once held life for me is haunted with memory. Drove past your house after we put you to rest, sang you off to the blessed. Your car was waiting for you. Turn the key. That day will never be. Windows of home become a house full of empty shadows. Is it when no one's around to shatter the sorrows? Windows of home become a house full of empty shadows. Is it when no one's around to shatter the sorrow? Drive past your house someday. There'll be a family. They won't know your story. Will your ghost watch down on them from afar? From right here in my car?
Yeah, Erik Brandt with "I Drove
Nice.
Past Your House Today" from his 2012 release, "The Longest Winter." Again, celebrating its 10th anniversary. So congrats. Cheers to that. And Alex, so great to have you joining us talking about all the cool ways you capture these sounds and all the, yeah.
One more
Love it.
round of applause for both of these artists here.
So good. And yeah, if you want to pick up this album, you can do that from Erik Brandt's website. And he has, as he said, he has a big catalog. So check out all of his music, and it's so wide ranging in terms of style and vibes. So you can check it all out at his website. And Erik, do you have any shows coming up for any local Twin Cities folks that you need to know about?
I do have some, but I'm afraid if I talk about it, I will get the dates wrong. So let me defer you to erikbrandt.com or urbanhillbillyquartet.com. Also want to invite you. I've recently taken over a radio show on Jazz 88, which is a local station. There was a radio show called String Theory that Kevin Barnes
One
ran.
of my favorites. Yeah.
Mine too. Yeah.
And I have the great privilege of continuing it. So 88.5 FM or KBEM.FM, 1 to 3 on Saturdays. Come join. Come join.
Yeah, it's called Good Acoustics. Is that correct?
Good acoustics. Yep.
Yep, I'm putting a link right now in the comments, so it's forever tied to this video.
Oh, great.
Check it out. This is you're carrying on the torch of one of my favorite shows, and I can't think of a better person to take it over. I'm so excited to be tuning in.
If anybody, thank you. If anybody listening has like album suggestions, artist suggestions, email them over. I'm always open. Yep.
And if folks, I can tell you right now, Erik, that if you go to backcataloglisteningparty.com, we have a whole, 100 and how many episodes, Tony?
106, no.
of great albums that we've featured on the show that we would think almost all of them would probably be a fit for your show. So, and I want to mention to folks out there listening that if you want to share today's show, this YouTube link will be good to share. It's also archived at backcataloglisteningparty.com with all those show notes and links to things, so you can check that out.
Photo gallery and all the rest.
And but mainly, thank you for being here. Thanks to Erik and Alex for joining us. Thanks to all of you for being a part of the conversation. This is what makes this hour special for us every week. And if you like it on YouTube, give it the thumbs up. Direct more bots to Erik Brandt, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we do this every Friday at 4. Not with Erik and Alex every week, sadly, but
hopefully
with other great
another
artists.
time in the future, because this was such a fun hour.
And
Erik,
with
can I just say, Erik, that it was such an honor to make this record with you and all the other ones, and I love you so much, and I really want to make more music with you.
The feeling is mutual.
Ooh, I can't wait to, help fund this next record, guys. Tip Erik well today so that we can make that happen and we can revisit it in the future on the Back Catalog Listening Party. We do want to thank our Patreon folks. These are the folks that keep the show going. We thought we'd do this maybe a month while we were bored during the pandemic, but
when the longest winter started 2 years ago, you guys have gotten us through this, and you're continuing to do so.
That's right.
And can folks tip you guys as well?
Well, they can join the Patreon is the best way. So they can do that, and then they get access to cool things like after parties and Zoom concerts, and we have both of those things coming up for our top level patrons, so you can check that out. Penny, Anna, Linda, Bevan, Connie, Vaughn, Alan, Chris, Alex, Becky, Galen, Peggy, Joe, Jim, Beverly, and John, Fred, Tim, Sarah, David, Jocelyn, Court, Matt, Steve, Mark, Homestead, Pick and Promise, Severin, Lynn, Craig, Jake, Mary, and many tracks, and maybe you. And we should tell our patrons that actually we have a after party after next week's show with our guest, Matt, the electrician from Austin, Texas, an amazing songwriter. And so check your email inboxes for that invite. But mainly, thank you for being here. This is what it's all about.
What a fun hour. We sure appreciate it. And thanks once again to both Erik and Alex for joining us, you guys.
Thanks, Mom and Tony. Thank you, guys. This is really fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who joined in today. So great to sorry we didn't get to say hi to all of you, but so glad you were here. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We'll see you next